Welcome into the Early Edge Week 16 NFL Pick Show presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. We have a packed slate starting with Thursday Night Football, Broncos at Chargers. A significant line move in this game. Broncos were getting 3, now only 2.5 as money seems to be coming in on the visitors. And let me bring in R.J. White and Mike McClure to break it all down. Here they are. And RJ, I know you have a play on this game, and you may not agree with the line move.
Yeah, once it gets to 2.5, I like the Chargers. The Chargers have struggled against legit good teams, but Denver certainly didn't look the part of a good team this past week. That blowout was semi-fake, only 192 yards on 13 meaningful drives despite the score. More about Indy blowing themselves in the foot, over and over there. Look at the first meeting between these teams. The Chargers dominated that. They took a 23-0 lead into the fourth quarter, held Denver to 63 yards on their first 7 drives. I think they're the better team. I think this is a case where both of these teams need to play teams that are worse for them to have success. And I just see the Chargers as a better team right now. So I'll lay the 2.5 with the Chargers as a best bet.
I lean in that direction as well. I like Ladd McConkey, though. I want to continue to talk about him. I know he missed some time and has been dealing with a number of injuries, but the fact that you get him here in the dome, in the controlled environment, and against this defense, I think that this is a spot that he can have some success. And you see this receiving line set at 64.5. Considering the volume that he is getting, I just think he's a player who should routinely be around 70 to 74 yards. So I'm looking at the over here on Ladd McConkey. I just think there are many game scripts where he does have the volume here to get over 64.5 yards.
Yeah, I love that play, Mike. Hopefully he won't have to deal with the Broncos' top corner playing in the slot. And I like Javonte Williams over his receiving yards. Jaleel McLaughlin is out. Javonte Williams has 40 catches this year. That is second only to Cortland Sutton. We know how much Denver struggles to run the ball. I think we see a lot of dump-offs against that Chargers zone. They play zone 78% of the time. I think we see some dump-offs, and Javonte Williams goes over 13.5 receiving yards. Well, we've got 2 very intriguing games on Saturday, starting with the Texans and the Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes expected to be out there practicing in full, although the practices are considered light practices. But I think at this point, everybody, including the market, expects to see him out there. RJ, how are you playing this?
Yeah, I'm looking toward the Texans as a best bet at plus 3.5. The look ahead was Chiefs -4 with a fully healthy Mahomes. And the Kansas City offense didn't look very good versus Cleveland despite the easy win. They haven't really played up to expectations down at any point in the second half of the season, really. Even with those quote unquote full practices to start the week, I don't think there is a guarantee that he plays. When you factor in with the matchups they have moving forward, I know they want to get that number 1 seed. I wonder if it's better to save him for that game on Christmas. So I think this could be a fantastic number, and even if he does play, I think it's a solid number on Houston. So I like playing it here now, and in the hopes that he sits. And even if he does, I think this could be a tight, low-scoring game that either team wins by 3.
I'm going to look at the Chiefs' first half team total. Again, a number I like to play a lot. This number is at 10.5. It's extremely low, and it looks like one that just didn't adjust from Mahomes being back to the starter. We saw the spread on the game essentially adjust the full 7 points that we thought that Mahomes would be worth. In this number here, you can get there on a touchdown and 2 field goals. You've got Harrison Butker here. I think this is a spot where they might have some success moving the ball, particularly early, particularly scripted drive out of the locker room, where typically in his career, Mahomes and Andy Reid have been good. So for me, I'll take a shot. Anytime it's a touchdown and 2 field goals with this Kansas City Chiefs team and the defense that could give them good field position, we'll go over 10.5 plus 105 in the first half.
You also got Hollywood Brown coming back for the Chiefs, but I'm with RJ. I liked it at 3.5 a lot for the Texans. I do think this is a field goal game. I'm still going to lean their way, getting 3, just because of how great that defense is, both against the run and against the pass. They're number 3 in EPA allowed. They rush the passer. They've got the defensive player of the week in Derek Stingley on the back end. And hopefully this is a game where they decide to throw the ball as opposed to trying to run it into Chris Jones in the brick wall. I think if the Texans open up their offense a lot, they could at least be competitive and lose this game by 3. The next game is another game with big injury questions, talking about the Steelers at the Ravens. Will TJ Watt play? Will George Pickens play for the Steelers? And RJ, I'm going to come right back to you. Do you have a play on this game?
Yeah, it's tough to play this game either way, considering how competitive the Steelers are with the Ravens. But knowing that if Pickens is out, the Ravens have a decided advantage there on both sides of the ball, maybe, including TJ Watt in that section of who plays for the Steelers. Offense hasn't looked good without Pickens. Run game probably doesn't have a shot against the Baltimore defense. Baltimore's held 3 straight opponents under 300 yards. Pittsburgh couldn't score a touchdown against them in the first meeting. My lean would be to Pittsburgh's team total under 20.5. It's getting pretty heavily juiced at minus 145 at BetMGM. But I think the play for this game is to just bank on Pittsburgh not scoring points, and then we'll see if the Ravens can have success against this defense.
I like that look a lot on the team total under. I'm going to lean to the Ravens. I think the game should be a full 7 considering the location of the game and the injuries that you mentioned, Larry. You talk about both of those injuries, even if they do play, they're legit injuries, and there's no guarantee that they finish a game here. The Baltimore Ravens are just on a different level and a different tier offensively here, and that defense is drastically improved. Now you look at the massive circumstances in this game, and I really question if this wasn't Mike Tomlin, but it was just another good team, would this be the full 7? Because Mike Tomlin, we know, has just been so good in the role of the underdog, so good in the role of coming off a loss and on the road in division. It's just a trifecta of where Mike Tomlin teams have typically covered the spread. And I think you're getting a discount on the other side now because of all those facts. So I will be leaning pretty heavily Ravens -6.
He's also been so good against the Ravens in this series with the Mike Tomlin voodoo. But Mike, you talked about how good the Baltimore defense has been over the last 5 weeks. The fewest yards per play allowed. And it started with benching Marcus Williams. I don't know if you saw some of the clips going around on Twitter about him getting totally lost in coverage against Jamar Chase, like running the wrong way while Jamar Chase is running free. Well, they put Ardarius Washington in there. They have Kyle Hamilton playing the free safety. And this Steelers offense could not get a first down in the first 5 drives last week without George Pickens. I agree with you guys. I am leaning Ravens as well, despite the series history, despite Mike Tomlin's voodoo. Okay, we have a massive Sunday slate to get to, starting with a really interesting divisional matchup with the Washington Commanders hosting the Eagles, and we've seen a big line move in this game as well. We'll talk about it next on The Early Edge.
Welcome back to the Early Edge NFL Kickoff Show. Will Brinson here along with Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, and R.J. White. Thank you, Larry, for holding down that first segment as I tried to hold down my cookies. Your host a little under the weather this week heading into the holidays. Nevertheless, we battle through and head to Washington, where the Eagles -3.5 in this spot against the Commanders. I mean, a huge game. The Commanders trying to keep, I suppose, playoff hopes, of course, but also the division hopes alive. The Eagles trying to lock things down and to keep winning. They haven't lost since their week 5 bye. Just incredibly impressive performance by this Eagles team. A total here, Larry, of 45.5.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the Eagles at this number, at the previous number of 3, but now we've seen some heavy money come in to push this up to 3.5. Jaden Daniels looked better since the extra rest that he got. He's scrambling more. But just you look at that first matchup, the Eagles really dominated the box score. Probably should have won by more. The way they control the ball is ridiculous. 21 play drive, 10 minutes. They don't let the other team even get their hands on the ball. And they really shut down Terry McLaurin in that first matchup. So I would lean Eagles, but I don't want to lay more than a field goal.
I like the Eagles side here, and I will admit I'm higher than the market on the Eagles. I've got them as the best team in the NFL by a half point over Buffalo right now, and it's really because of their defense and stylistically just the way they play. They've committed the opposite way. We've seen the league go way heavy pass over expectation, not the Eagles. They are running the football, and they've got the tush push, and it's just so hard to defend. We talk about this all the time, but in these kind of games, they're playing for first downs at basically 8.5 yards. They're not trying to get 10 yards. They need 8.5. And when I look at this matchup here, I think this number should be 4.5. I know it's a big difference than the 3, but I think that that's where this game should be. I think that they have the ability to really just do whatever they want offensively, and the defense has been so good. It's not a particularly difficult place to go play. I know there is a lot of new energy around this Commanders team, but you're not talking about significant travel. I think this is a spot where it's Eagles or nothing personally. So I'm going to go first half team total over 12.5 and lean on that spread as well.
And worth noting for people who have not been watching the show every week on Thursday, Mike has been high on the Eagles for like 2 months now, higher than the market on the Eagles for 2 months, and it's looked pretty sharp as they have ripped off. I mean, they're just on a heater. I mean, they've won 10 straight games since their week 5 bye and look like the best team in football. I'm going to go back to an old faithful here with a best bet on a Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown. It's a couple of things. One, I think the urgency of trying to win this game, and they're trying to walk the Lions down for that number 1 seed. Of course, Hurts is just getting all the carries by the goal line, and if depending on where you find it, you can get minus 120. I'd certainly shop around for something like this, but I do think if they get inside the 5-yard line, you're going to see him hand the ball to Jalen Hurts. They didn't care. Even when Saquon Barkley was involved in the MVP race, it didn't really matter to them. They were giving Jalen Hurts the ball down at the goal line. Saquon has this incredible ability to be tackled at the 1, which has helped Jalen Hurts out a ton. And I think he'll use his legs a little bit in this spot. I do like the Eagles a bit here as well, but I think Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown, a very good look. Another huge game. It's in the Lions. Lions at the Bears. Lions are minus 6.5 on the road, just outdoors, I believe, for the second time this season. A wild anomaly, Mike, when we talk about the scheduling and what Detroit got. They are decimated on defense. I think up to over maybe 22 defensive players on IR. Just lost Ali McNeil for the season to a torn ACL. That's huge for their run defense. And a total here, a really high total of 48, given the chilly 20, 30 degree weather conditions we expect in this spot.
Yeah, if you told me week 16 in Chicago, we're going to see a total of 48, I would have called you crazy here. I'm still going to go under on this one, though. Look, I think the number... I put the number down to 45. I think that I could get behind a 46, 46.5. 47 still becomes a pretty key number here. When you look at this Lions team, I'm confident that they're still going to be able to find ways to the end zone. I do worry about them playing outdoors in colder conditions. The concern, obviously, is their defense and how beat up they are. Can the Bears take advantage of it? I think they can a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be massive, big chunk play after chunk play. I think it's going to be moving the football methodically, kind of down the field, eating up some of that clock, and then potentially maybe not having a ton of red zone efficiency. So it's a big number, and one of those where you just kind of pay to find out. I will pay to find out if teams are going to score 50 points outdoors in Chicago late December.
Yeah, I definitely get that. I'm still looking at the over on Detroit. It's 27.5 at minus 110. The Chicago defense has been awful since early in the season. The last 4 weeks, they're allowing just over 30 points per game. Detroit can still run the ball successfully without Montgomery, and their defensive injuries should force them to keep the foot on the gas to put up points. So I think even in the outdoor conditions, they're going to go out and score some points in this game. I'm not sure if the Bears will be able to do the same, just seeing how that offense has looked the last few weeks with the coaching changes, and it seems like they're probably playing out the string here. So I think that we could still hit both of our picks because I don't think the Bears score a ton really, despite the Detroit injuries. But I think that Detroit's going to want to keep their foot on the gas just in case. So I like them over 27.5.
Yeah, I wanted to look to the over here, but as Mike points out, it's a ton of points, and it is outdoors. We saw the last time the Lions were outdoors and they played the Packers. Here's sort of my thing on it, though. They went to Green Bay and they played great defense and they pounded the ball with David Montgomery. Well, no David Montgomery now. I think Jahmyr Gibbs maybe use him a little bit more in the passing game. I don't know what they're going to do to supplement the Montgomery stuff. I think if I were looking at this, maybe a second half over or even a live total over if the game starts slow and Detroit doesn't score early. Because, Chicago, the same thing happened to the Bears that happened to the Jets. You fire your defensive-minded head coach, and the defense just goes off the rails. And the Bears have been bad since they fired Matt Eberflus. Jets have been bad since they fired Robert Saleh. I think Detroit can kind of name their total. So I do think maybe I like that look from RJ where you just go with the team total. Browns at the Bengals. Dorian Thompson-Robinson in this game for Jameis Winston. Oh, Jameis, we hardly knew ya. RJ, this is a lot of points for a Bengals team that has been great offensively, but just hasn't really put it together from a holistic standpoint this season. Bengals minus 7.5 total, 47.5.
Yeah, and now they're losing Sam Hubbard as well. I think that's a bigger deal for the Cincy defense than it is the loss of Chubb on the other side, because he wasn't playing at a high level anyway. And Jerome Ford has looked like he has something to give there in both the running and passing game. The Lions moved 2 points off the look ahead. Cleveland potentially upgraded at quarterback. I know Dorian Thompson-Robinson hasn't played well in the past, but you look at those turnovers that Jameis was throwing, and man, if somebody can be a little bit more conservative and not just throw those picks, those very ugly picks, I think this team can run its way to being competitive against a defense that hasn't been very good. I think it's a high variance game depending on DTR's level of play. But since that Cleveland defense dominated Cincy in the first meeting, I think a 20-13 type of cover is possible. So because this is above 7, my lean is going to be to Cleveland plus 7.5 and hope for a little bit of a lower scoring game.
I lean the other way, RJ, because that Browns pass rush has fallen off a cliff, down the stretch. And DTR, I mean, I don't think there is variance. I mean, if you look at the limited snaps that he's played, he ranks basically bottom 2 in the entire NFL in every meaningful metric. I know he's not going to throw, multiple pick sixes most likely, but this Bengals offense is just so on point right now. And, they're finishing the season strong. It's been a terrible disappointment, but they got the fluky win in Dallas. Then they took care of business last week despite going down early in that game. And now you're facing another bad team. This is the kind of team they can whip up on.
Yeah, I think the Bengals are going to put up points here. I'll lean to their team total over 27.5. I just think that there's many scenarios of 28 plus again here. I think they're going to continue to force feed the ball to Jamar Chase, try and get him that triple crown. I do think that when you look at the defense, though, they've let essentially anyone with a pulse put up points and move the football on them. So I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson does have enough upside with his own legs to extend a drive. I think that we see some points here, and the Bengals ultimately get pushed enough to put the 4 touchdowns on the board once again.
So I put in my best bets column on CBSSports.com, I put a little parlay in there, nothing like a really sharp same game parlay. But I do think that Jamar Chase's anytime touchdown, I think he gets in the end zone. I think he really wants, and I think Joe Burrow really wants to get him the Triple Crown this year. He currently leads receptions 102, yards 14-13, and touchdowns at 15. And he should be able to get there if they keep playing well. But the price for anytime touchdowns like minus 135. If you parlay that with Jamar Chase over 60 plus receiving yards, you get a plus money number on it, and you could ladder it a little bit if you wanted to. I think that's a fairly good look. But I didn't want to go too high. His yardage total 87.5. That's a lot. Just because if the Browns can't do anything offensively, maybe the Bengals throttle back, run with Chase Brown, and try to avoid getting injured. But I think Jamar Chase finds the end zone in this one and gets over 60 yards, and at that at plus money, I like quite a bit. We have a cataclysmic shift at the quarterback position in Atlanta. And we've got to talk about Kirk Cousins' bench for Michael Penix Jr. Cousins got paid $65 million this year. They're going with the number 8 overall pick on Sunday. Probably has nothing to do with the fact that they're at home against the lowly Giants. Is there a best bet, an opportunity here? We will tell you coming up next on The Early Edge. Welcome back to the Early Edge NFL Week 16 kickoff show. Will Brinson, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, and R.J. White giving you best bets for every game on the slate. We head to New York, where the suddenly resurgent Jets, which I'm sure has nothing to do. By the way, I mean, I'm sure you guys saw the story in The Athletic on Thursday, but Woody Johnson apparently making personnel decisions based on Madden ratings, or reportedly. He decided not to trade for Jerry Jeudy because his teenage sons thought his Madden rating was too low, which just seems unbelievable. But then you look at the Jets and maybe it's not. Well, the Jets, who have been playing well the last couple of weeks, thanks to Aaron Rodgers realizing he can tank their draft stock in the opposite direction by throwing touchdowns and actually playing well this season, is now a 3.5-point dog at home against my Los Angeles Rams, who didn't score a touchdown last week, but are coming off a 10-day break. Larry, it's a lot of points on the road for a Jets team that's looked a lot better, with the total here of 46.5 on CBS, by the way.
Yeah, too many points. I mean, the one thing Joe Douglas did well was rebuild that O-line, and they're protecting Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Jacksonville didn't really get close to him. He had all day to throw. He found Devontae Adams for 1,000,000 yards, and the offense over the last 5 weeks averaging nearly 27 points a game. We know the defense has cratered since the firing, but they will have their cornerbacks or their main cornerbacks healthy for this matchup. But if you look at your Rams and your Matthew Stafford, I don't know if it's his old bones or what, but when he goes on the road, and especially in cold weather type places, they've started so slow. 2 touchdowns in the first half on the road all year, both of them at New England, and they played 7 road games. So I think the Jets can score enough to keep this tight, maybe win outright, but I'm definitely taking the points.
Yeah, Jets offense playing as well as it has all year. The Rams defense 29th in points per drive and has allowed plenty of points in recent weeks in some of the matchups that don't have ugly weather like we saw the last week against San Francisco. The Jets defense managing a lot of injuries. Only 2 DNPs on Wednesday, though, so I'm a little bit more optimistic about them than I was earlier in the week. I think there's a potential they show up in a tough spot for the Rams here. Rams haven't covered in sub-30 temperatures since the 1970s, and I know these aren't the same players, but Matthew Stafford's one good game in that type of weather was when Aaron Rodgers was hurt early in Green Bay, and he got to face DeShone Kizer, and they went out and blew out a lifeless Packers team after the Rodgers injury. So I think that it could be a bad spot for Stafford here. I think it's a good spot for a Jets offense playing well. I have Jets plus 3.5 as a best bet.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. It'd be Jets or nothing here. I think the line should be closer to 1.5. When you look at this Jets team, I would make the argument that they're a lot closer to a playoff team right now in the AFC than they are a bottom of the league team. Like, you line this team up against the Broncos and the Chargers or the Colts, for example. I think those are all games that this team in the current form can actually win. And I think there's a lot of motivation here. I think there's a lot of motivation on the side of Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams to essentially prove we should still be here next year. So I like Devontae Adams player props once again. I think his anytime touchdown is a great look. And I think DFS-wise, I think you could play it as well. It's one of the few offenses in the NFL right now where you know where every single target is going. Like, you have a clear double stack that's going to Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. So I like that as well.
Yeah, look, no one loves a 10-unit whale play on the Los Angeles Rams more than your boy here. But if I were dropping a 10-unit whale play on this game, it would be on the Jets. This is too many points. I don't get it. I agree with Mike completely. It should be like 1. And if it was 1, I'd probably be looking at the Rams. I think they can find a way to win this game. But I can't overstate how, Aaron Rodgers is one of the most spiteful people who has ever come through the NFL, a league that is largely driven on athletic talent and spite and motivation. And I really think he either wants to prove to the Jets that they are making a mistake if they move on from him, or prove to the Jets that they should bring him back, or showcase to anyone else that he needs to be on the team next year. And I don't think it's a great matchup for the Rams because of where their offense goes through with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, and the Jets. Jets. If Kyron Williams just has a field day, that's one thing. I get it, but yeah, I think the Jets offense can get going here, and I would certainly lean on the Jets side, which is something I don't like doing when the Rams are involved. The AFC South features the Tennessee Titans and a fiery Brian Callahan, who went on this bizarre screed about the team not trying hard after benching Will Levis for Mason Rudolph. That's right. Chris Trapasso redeemed at last. Pete Prisco stuck in his Tuscan castle, eating at Olive Garden with Will Levis, maybe serving him next year instead of playing. And now Mason Rudolph starting for the Titans, headed to Indianapolis to play the Colts, RJ, where the Colts are minus 3.5 with a total of 42.5 in this game, by the way, on CBS.
Yeah, there's a lot of injuries to monitor on both sides. There's going to be a wait and see, to see how the injury report checks out on Friday. I think the game sets up well for Indy with the defense coming off a very good game against Denver, despite what the final score said, as I mentioned earlier. Tennessee's offense had to make a quarterback switch. I don't expect a major bump with Rudolph running the offense, even though we are very close to Christmas. So you would expect that Rudolph would shine bright, in this type of situation. I think it is one of Indy's easier matchups of the year here. The Tennessee defense has been a lot softer lately. No reason Indy shouldn't put up 20 plus at home. I think they're going to win this game by a touchdown. So my lean is going to be Indy minus 3.5, but I do want to wait to see how the final injury report shakes out.
Yeah, I lean to Indy as well, potentially looking at their team total over, depending on the number you can get, or just a slight ugly over in the game. We're talking about a dome game, perfect conditions, like 23-20, very realistic final here. So I would lean over on the Colts team total, waiting on some of those injury reports like RJ, though.
Yeah, and we've seen this Titans defense sometimes just not show up on the road. I'm only looking right now, though, at Jonathan Taylor props. I mean, you talk about motivation. You just cost your team a chance at the playoffs. You just wrecked the entire season with carelessness. He is going to want to atone for that in a big way at home.
Yeah. I got nothing on this game. I think maybe look to the under, although the Mason Rudolph thing, man. Mason Rudolph makes me feel a little bit better about an under because Will Levis, something weird and something meme-worthy is going to happen. We mentioned Michael Penix Jr. He is starting for the Atlanta Falcons after not playing, by the way, in the entire preseason. They didn't want to get a look at him in the preseason. And it apparently doesn't matter to the spread or actually moves the spread up because the Falcons are 8.5-point favorites over the Giants in this one in Atlanta. A total here, Larry, of 41, despite Kirk Cousins being benched, or maybe because of Kirk Cousins being benched.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't get to see him in the preseason, and he's probably not getting a lot of first-team's reps, and the coaches still believe he is better than Kirk Cousins, and I would agree because Kirk Cousins has thrown 16 picks. That's for a guaranteed $100 million that they gave him. He's a total statue, and they ran the ball. They had 23 first-down plays in Vegas, and they ran the ball 22 times. So they have no confidence in Kirk Cousins. That was against a pass rush missing Max Crosby. So I think they get a big upgrade. This is the dream spot for a rookie to make his debut. I mean, the Giants can't stop the run, 31st in yards per attempt. They can't stop the pass, 31st in passer rating allowed. Highly banged up, very questionable personnel out there for the Giants, and I think it's going to be Drew Lock, but either way, I would definitely lean Atlanta. I think their offense is going to come to life.
It'll be interesting to see because, rookie quarterbacks making their debuts at the second half of the season typically don't play that well. Only 5 of the last 50 to make their debut in week 10 or later have scored 27 plus. That's why I'm looking to the under 26.5 for Atlanta's team total. That's a lot of points for a guy that we just don't know. It really seems like that is projecting him at the kind of the ceiling of his outcomes. With an Atlanta offense, you're not going to put them any higher than that, I don't think. So what if he isn't that good? What if he needs some time to get his feet under him? I know he's probably the better option, even though the market disagrees. This was 10.5 before the news, and it's now dropped to 8.5. I don't have any confidence teasing the Falcons because I just don't know what we're going to see with Penix, even against an awful Giants team that I know is awful. They're my 32nd ranked team. Atlanta's only won by more than 6 once all year, and it was against a horrible Carolina team. So this is asking a lot for them, asking a lot for a quarterback making his debut to step in and score this many points. My lean's going to be under their team total.
I like that lean, RJ. I have them down to 24, so I definitely am in agreement with you there. And I'll lean on the Giants plus 8.5. Not a play that I'm in love with here, but I do think that this game just being indoors in the dome, perfect conditions, will help that passing game a little bit. We've seen Malik Neighbors getting force-fed the ball. I think that happens again here, and I think they can ultimately move it enough and keep this one close. Like RJ said, when you typically get to quarterbacks like this making a debut, like this is a true wild card. We haven't seen much at all at this level, at this speed. It wouldn't shock me if there's a slow start. So I'll go Giants here plus 8.5.
Yeah, and one thing, by the way, to consider with this game, and you talk about a quarterback change in Week 16, and we know this factually because we've heard guys like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and all these guys saying Michael Penix is left-handed. Like, you're talking about an entirely different rotation coming from what you've been used to for 15 or 14 weeks, 14 games. And I mean, I get, like, these guys have practiced with them some, but I mean, it's like, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Like, I think maybe you look at first half under or first half Falcons team total under and just don't expect a lot of points to be scored with the Giants trying to run the football a ton, take some easier looks, some slants to Malik Neighbors, and then Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier being the primary focal points of this offense in the first half. Because look, we can talk about the Falcons and, the fact that they created a backup plan, and that's great, all we want, but you spent $65 million this year on Kirk Cousins. Your owner's going to be pissed off. If Michael Penix Jr. goes out there and looks terrible and is throwing a bunch of picks in the first half, Terry Fontenot's seat is going to be cooking. So, like, I really think you've got to protect Penix in this spot and limit the number of attempts he has in the first half if you can. I see a lot of rushing attempts for the Falcons in that first half. Fun fact, Cardinals-Panthers. Cardinals at the Panthers. Cardinals -4, total of 47. My home of Raleigh, North Carolina, which is obviously in North Carolina. They have flexed out this game on Fox for the Eagles-Commanders game. They just announced it. Half of the state of North Carolina is not going to see the Panthers game because they don't want to subject them to this disastrous thing. And, of course, we saw Kyler Murray in his press conference, and I'm on the under in this spot. I don't think they score any points. Kyler Murray was asked, how do you feel about a cold weather game? He said, I've played in cold weather games before. How cold is it going to be? Somebody said 35, and his response was a 4-letter S word that I can't say on television. So I think that Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are going to try to run the ball and probably be pretty successful against the Panthers. And I think the Panthers are going to try and run the ball too and probably be pretty successful. Could see a lot of red zone struggles for both of these quarterbacks, and wouldn't be surprised at all if we're looking at like 7-3 or 6-3 at half, and we cruise under a surprisingly high RJ total of 47 here.
I give the Cardinals a little more credit. The Panthers defense, like you said, they just cannot stop the run at all. And that's been Arizona's strength all year on offense. I think they have a chance to put up a big number in that situation, just running straight and getting 3-4 touchdowns in that scenario. The Carolina offense turned back into a pumpkin last week, and Arizona's defense has delivered elite performances against bad offenses this year. We saw that couple-week stretch with the Bears' struggles. Was no situation. I think they gave up 6 points in one game, 9 points the next game. They were looking really good at that point of the season. So I think you throw the Panthers in that category here, and they're able to win this game something like 24-10 and cover pretty easily. So my lean right now is to Arizona. It's at -4.5 or 5 in the market right now. Hoping to get a 4 like we have here on the screen. So I've been waiting to put it in, but if I can get a 4, I'm going to back the Cardinals.
Yeah, it would be Cardinals or nothing for me. I'm waiting for James Conner props to come out. I like his over on attempts. I like the over on yardage. I like the anytime touchdown. The game's obviously very important for them. I think that they're going to put the football in his hands and really not put themselves in position to make too many mistakes unless, again, they fall behind and are trailing. But I think that they're going to be neutral or better for at least the first 2.5, 3 quarters here. So I like James Conner quite a bit in this matchup.
Yeah, and when they get outside the division against these teams with these subpar defenses, they're able to run the ball, and that unlocks everything for this Cardinals offense. They need to run the ball to have success offensively. We saw it last week against New England. I'm with you guys. I lean towards the Cardinals.
Yeah, that had me thinking. I was trying to grab a Post-it note to write play James Conner in DFS, and then also, it's not impossible. Like, maybe look at some backup running back spots for anytime touchdown if you can get like some 5-1s or something like that. Just because if they do blow out the Panthers and lean on that run, you could see them spread the ball around pretty consistently. The Minnesota Vikings continue just to win football games, 2 back-to-back blowouts. That has led to them, Sam Darnold, Justin Jefferson being 3-point road favorites against a potential playoff team in the Seattle Seahawks. Zach Charbonnet stepping in nicely for Kenneth Walker, but that Vikings defense is tough to deal with. What are our best bets for that game? We will tell you next, coming up on The Early Edge. Welcome back to the Early Edge NFL Kickoff Show. Will Brinson and Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein and R.J. White giving you best bets for every single game on the slate. Vikings at Seahawks, a massive game with seeding and playoff implications here. Vikings are 3 in this spot. I know I was otherwise incapacitated during the first segment, but I have a teaser in this spot. Seahawks +9 and Texans +9.5. The Vikings have blown out 2 teams in recent weeks, but I think the Seahawks offense presents a bigger challenge. I think the Texans will keep it within 1 score of the Chiefs, and I think the Seahawks keep it with 1 score here, forcing Sam Darnold to sort of pass plenty with that run defense. RJ, you don't see a ton of points in this game.
Yeah, it depends on what Seahawks team we get. There's a lot of injuries for Seattle to consider here. At least Geno is trending toward playing. Seattle has no chance in this game if he sits, I don't think. The Minnesota defense may eat up this Seattle offensive line anyway, and I think their rain could make it hard for both passing attacks. So I like the under here at 43.5. Minnesota hasn't been tested by tough teams during their 7-game win streak, really, but there's the potential that a beat-up Seattle doesn't qualify as a tough team either. So I'm going with the under.
Yeah, I lean under as well. The Seattle injury is big concern for me. As you mentioned, no shot if Geno is really limited, but the running back situation, Kenneth Walker, very unlikely to play in my opinion. Charbonnet missed practice yesterday dealing with an oblique injury. He's been put through a lot recently with Walker not being there. So all these things to me lead itself to an under here.
49ers at Dolphins. The Dolphins are -1 in this spot. Probably saw their playoff chances go up in flames in the past couple of weeks. Total of 44.5. Obviously, Larry, the Niners not exactly, not exactly in great shape for the playoffs either. Certainly a disappointing season. It sounds like Trent Williams out for this game. Doesn't scare you away from the visitors, though.
No, I like the way they're approaching the end of the season in terms of, taking Devondre Campbell's nameplate off of his locker room, saying that we're not going to have that. Nick Bosa should be coming back, Malik Mustafa coming back. The defense has played great the past 2 weeks. I think Brock Purdy will be better in perfect weather conditions in the 70s in South Florida than he was in that rainstorm. And this Dolphins team, Tyreek Hill is tweeting, "Time for me to go, coach." What does that mean? Devon Achane, 2.6 yards per carry over the last 4 games. Probably no Jalen Waddle. So the offense really struggling. I really love the 49ers on this one.
Yeah, it'd be an under lean for me. Most likely looking to isolate the Dolphins team total under. As much as I like them down the stretch a little bit, they've really fallen off offensively and just losing that game. I think that while there's mathematically a path still, I think they're out. And I think Tyreek Hill is definitely checked out, still dealing with the wrist injury. I just can't trust the offense at all here.
Patriots and Bills. The Bills trying to chase down the Chiefs will know. If the Chiefs lose on Saturday, obviously, with a banged up Mahomes, and although he practiced in full, the Bills could have a real chance to squeeze things up when it comes to that number 1 seed in the AFC. Probably still a long shot, but I like this over in the spot. Bills are -14. That's a huge number. I thought about taking the Bills. I don't want to do it though because Drake May can make some plays. He pulls garbage time out of his tail every single week, it feels like, with it running with his legs or throwing down the field. And I think you've seen consistently since Josh Allen really became Josh Allen and the Bills took over this division, they have handed it to divisional opponents and really handed it to the Patriots when they got a chance. Clearly, no Bill Belichick. Still don't think it matters. I think Sean McDermott and Josh Allen both hate this franchise and how they tortured them for so long. And as a result, I don't think they're going to ease up. Allen wants to pile on the MVP stuff. I think the Bills get to 30+ here easily, and the Patriots help us through the back door to get this over. A very high total of 46.5. Not scared about it. Drake May will find some garbage time points. RJ, you are going to dive into the deep end of the Patriots +14 here.
Yeah, I think it's a good fade spot for Buffalo. Coming off a massive win, potential Super Bowl preview. Everybody loves how well they're playing. Now they're up against a supposed pushover in a divisional game, even if they have owned this team in the past. That is trending, I think, in the right direction, especially offensively. And the look ahead was adjusted from -11.5. I think that's too much of an adjustment, especially when you see some 14.5s out there in the market. I think that's a number I really like for the Patriots. They do have the potential to no-show, but with Buffalo's defense managing a lot of injuries, particularly at safety, I think there's at least a potential for a backdoor cover with May playing well, even if New England is getting blown out. So I think the only way really to look on the spread after that look ahead adjustment is to New England at +14 or hopefully at +14.5.
All right, Jaguars at Raiders, man. Can't wait. This Jaguar season, just a scorcher. This game, on CBS, actually, it's an incredible game. You should watch it. Jaguars at Raiders. Raiders are -1 in this spot. Total of 39.5, RJ.
Yeah, Jacksonville has surprisingly played well since the bye. We kind of expected this team to give up, considering the coaching situation. We expect there to be turnover there. Trevor Lawrence's injury, but they've outgained their last three opponents. Vegas hasn't topped 17 points in a start without Minshew at quarterback all year. Now it's hard to trust their defense with Max Crosby on IR. I have the Jaguars 2 points better than Vegas, and in this season where the Raiders are a dead team, I can't imagine they should be getting 3 for home field advantage. So I think anything with Jacksonville catching points here is good. I like them as a best bet at +1.
You know what happens when the NFL puts a bunch of good teams on Christmas Day? It forces them to play on the Saturday before, which makes the Sunday slate a little less sexy and turns Sunday Night Football into the Cowboys are playing kind of good. The Cowboys are playing well. The Buccaneers are white hot. Mike Evans chasing 1,000 yards. We will tell you the best bets for this game coming up next on The Early Edge. Welcome back to the Early Edge NFL Week 16 kickoff show. Will Brinson, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, and R.J. White giving you best bets for every game on the slate. We head to Sunday Night Football where the Buccaneers, the white-hot Buccaneers, head to Dallas to play the Cowboys, who are getting way too many primetime games late in the year, given their injury situation and their status vis-a-vis the playoffs. But this one could be fun with the Cowboys offense providing a little spark here. The Buccaneers putting up a ton of points recently. Bucks -4 at Dallas. Total here, RJ, of 48.5.
Yeah, I think that this line isn't high enough. I like the Bucks -4. They're dealing with an extensive injury report, so I want to wait before I lock it in. But Dallas lead on a run versus an awful Carolina rush defense last week. Tampa's defense has held 5 straight under 100 rush yards. Big worry for me is that Tampa's playing 4 road games in 5 weeks. Maybe they're due for a clunker, but I just think Tampa is in such a higher class than the Cowboys that this line should be a few points higher. So I would lean to the Bucks.
Yeah, and Vita Vea, since he's been healthy, they are shutting down the run and averaging 31 points a game over their last 4. And, last week, Baker Mayfield was basically not touched. There's a really good front 4 of the Chargers, and they collectively had 1 pressure, and that's to the credit of Luke Gedeke and Tristan Wirfs up front. The offensive tackles might be the best duo in the NFL right now. So I'm going to lay it with this Bucs team that is on quite a roll right now, both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and if you look at this game, you can find currently in the market the anytime touchdown scores. I think the Bucs will be able to score pretty handily against Dallas. Whether Dallas can come back or not, we'll see. But Rico Dowdle's priced, I see it like -140 anytime touchdown. You get both Bucky Irving and Rachaad White at plus money. I don't think it's unreasonable that both guys find the end zone. Mike Evans props, we talked about him a little, we mentioned before, but like Mike Evans in explosion spot potentially here as well. So I tend to like the Buccaneers. Also, Saints at the Packers. Woof. Monday Night Football, the Packers -13.5. Jordan Love flexing his Toyota-thon muscles lately, Mike. Total here of 42.
I could only get to the Packers -13.5. I think that there's a scenario. I guess Saints team total under would be correlated as well. I think there's a scenario where they just hold the Saints team to 10 points in this game. Look, you have to watch the weather. It doesn't look like we're going to see snow here. Just going to be cold. But we Packers or nothing here for me at 13.5.
RJ, you like the Packers as well, and you've got a look ahead for Week 17, right?
Yeah, I like taking the Ravens -2.5 at Houston on that Christmas Day. I'm taking Houston as a value play against Kansas City, but Baltimore's much better than both Kansas City or Houston right now. And even if they struggle this week, it's going to get chalked up to always tough Pittsburgh matchup. So I think this line gets to 3, and I want to be on them before it gets to 3.
I kind of like that over in that game, too, where it's like Baltimore slinging it around, Houston having to do the same thing as that Baltimore pass rush, maybe a possible preview of a playoff matchup. That's going to be a fun one in Week 17 for sure. All right, that'll do it for us. Great job, fellas. RJ, Mike, Larry, fantastic work. Make sure you want more of our picks to go to sportsline.com and use promo code WINNERS to get 60% off your annual subscription. Plus, you can sign up and get the Early Edge podcast, a daily Sportsline betting podcast. Pick it up on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, or use the handy little QR code on the screen to fire it up right now. For Mike, for Larry, for RJ, I'm Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you guys later.